She was dragged into the throne room in chains, her dress was torn, her name was ruined, and every noble in the empire was smiling like they had already won. The crown prince pointed at her and said, "This woman is a traitor." Her family lowered their eyes, her best friend pretended to cry, and the woman who stole her fiancé stood beside the throne, wearing the necklace that used to belong to her mother. Everyone thought this was her final humiliation, but nobody noticed the emperor's seal hidden inside her glove. Nobody noticed the ministers refusing to speak, and nobody noticed that the soldiers surrounding the room were not loyal to the prince anymore. Then she smiled. Not a broken smile, not a desperate smile, a smile that said, "You walked into my trap." Because this was not the day she lost everything. This was the day she came back to take it all. But to understand how a hated villainess became the most feared empress in the empire, we have to go back to the night she died. Lady Evelyn Ashford was born into one of the strongest noble houses in the capital. On paper, she had everything: a powerful family, a perfect education, a future marriage to Crown Prince Cedric, and a reputation as the most brilliant young woman in high society. But inside House Ashford, Evelyn was not treated like a daughter. She was treated like an investment. Her father did not ask if she was happy. He asked if she was useful. Her older brother did not protect her. He used her connections to climb higher in the military, and her stepmother smiled sweetly in public, then reminded Evelyn in private that a daughter's only value was the marriage she could secure. So Evelyn learned early: do not cry, do not complain, do not ask for love from people who only understand profit. When the crown prince chose her as his fiancée, the whole empire called her lucky. But Evelyn knew the truth. Cedric did not choose her because he loved her. He chose her because her family had money, soldiers, and political influence. Everyone thought Evelyn was cold and arrogant, but nobody knew she had spent her whole life being trained like a weapon. For years, she cleaned up Cedric's scandals. When he insulted foreign envoys, she wrote the apologies. When he lost money in secret gambling houses, she paid the debts. When ministers doubted his ability to rule, she fed him the exact words he needed to sound intelligent. Cedric received the applause. Evelyn received the blame, and then Seraphina arrived. A soft-spoken baron's daughter with golden hair, trembling hands, and the perfect ability to look innocent exactly when people were watching. The first time she met Evelyn, she curtsied so low that everyone in the garden whispered about how humble she was. Then, when nobody else could hear, Seraphina leaned closer and said, "You look tired, my lady. It must be exhausting pretending the prince actually wants you." Evelyn froze. Seraphina smiled. And from that day on, the poison started spreading. If Evelyn corrected a servant, Seraphina called her cruel. If Evelyn advised Cedric on politics, Seraphina called her controlling. If Evelyn stayed silent, Seraphina cried that Evelyn was intimidating her. The court loved it, because people never want the truth when gossip is more entertaining. Soon the story became simple. Seraphina was the pure angel, Cedric was the trapped prince, and Evelyn was the jealous villainess standing in the way of true love. But here is what nobody knew. Seraphina was not just some helpless girl. She was working with Duke Marcel, the one noble powerful enough to challenge the throne. Every tear was calculated. Every rumor was planted. Every accidental meeting with the prince was arranged. They did not want Cedric's heart. They wanted the empire, and Evelyn was the only piece on the board smart enough to stop them. So they decided to destroy her. The trap was set at the winter banquet. Hundreds of nobles filled the palace hall. Chandeliers burned like frozen stars. Musicians played softly while the court pretended not to stare at Cedric and Seraphina standing far too close together. Then Seraphina lifted a wineglass to her lips. One sip, one gasp, and she collapsed. The music stopped. Cedric screamed her name. A physician rushed forward, checked the cup, and announced that it had been poisoned. Then a maid stepped out from the crowd, shaking so violently she could barely speak. "My Lady Evelyn ordered me to place it there." The room erupted. Evelyn looked at the maid. She had never seen this girl before, but the girl had already been paid. Cedric turned on Evelyn like a man who had been waiting for permission. "You were jealous," he said. "You could not stand that I loved someone pure." Pure. That word almost made her laugh. Evelyn demanded an investigation. Her father told her not to make things worse. Her brother said the family could survive if she confessed alone. Her stepmother wept into a silk handkerchief and whispered that Evelyn had always been unstable. Everyone thought she would be protected by her bloodline, but nobody knew her family had already sold her to save themselves. By morning, Evelyn was stripped of her title. By sunset, the prince ended their engagement. And 3 days later, she was sentenced to death for treason. Not by hanging, not by blade, by fire. They wanted the empire to remember her as a monster. On the execution ground, Seraphina stood beside Cedric in white dress, white gloves, white smile. Cedric would not look Evelyne in the eye. Her family did not come. The torches were lit. Smoke filled her lungs. And just before the flames reached her, Evelyn saw one man fighting through the guards, Duke Adrian Blackthorne, the so-called tyrant of the North, the man every noble feared, the man Evelyn had been taught to avoid. He cut down 3 soldiers before they dragged him back. And for the first time in her life, Evelyn saw someone look at her with real grief. Not pity, not calculation. Grief. Adrian shouted, "I should have protected you." Then the flames swallowed everything. Evelyn died with one thought burning hotter than the fire. If I ever get another chance, I will not beg them to love me. I will make them kneel. And then she opened her eyes. She was in her bedroom. Her old bedroom. The curtains were blue again. Her hands were unscarred. Her engagement ring was still on her finger. On the table beside her was an invitation to the Royal Spring Tea Party, the exact tea party where she first met Seraphina. Evelyne had returned 3 years into the past. At first she could not breathe, then she laughed, softly, dangerously, because everyone else thought the game had just begun, but Evelyne had already seen the ending. This time, she did not run to Cedric. She did not warn her father. She did not confront Seraphina. That was the old Evelyne's mistake. She believed that if she explained the truth, someone would save her. This Evelyne knew better. Truth does not win because it is true. Truth wins when you have enough power to force people to hear it. So she started quietly. First, she sold 3 pieces of jewelry Cedric had given her. Not the sentimental ones, the expensive ones. With that money, she bought shares in a failing shipping company she remembered would become rich after discovering a safer northern trade route. Everyone thought she was wasting money, but nobody knew she was buying the future before the future arrived. Next, she dismissed every servant who had testified against her in the past life. Not all at once. That would look suspicious. One was transferred. One was married off with a generous gift. One was caught stealing silver because Evelyne placed the silver exactly where she knew greedy hands would reach. Then she visited the temple archives. In her past life, she had ignored old imperial laws because Cedric called them boring. Now she studied them until sunrise. And there, hidden in a forgotten succession clause, she found the blade she needed. If the crown prince was proven to be under foreign or noble manipulation, the imperial council could remove him, but only if a candidate with royal blood or imperial mandate presented evidence. Evelyne had evidence. She needed a candidate, which meant she needed Adrian Blackthorne, the tyrant duke, the man who died trying to save her. Their first meeting happened at a hunting tournament. Adrian stood alone beneath the black banners of the north. Nobles avoided him like he carried a plague. In the old timeline, Evelyne had done the same. This time, she walked straight to him. The whispers started instantly. Has Lady Ashford lost her mind? Does she not fear him? She is the crown prince's fiancé. Adrian looked at her with cold silver eyes. What do you want? He asked. Evelyne smiled. A contract. That got his attention. She told him Duke Marcel was moving money through temple charities. She told him Seraphina would soon appear at court. She told him Cedric would be used as a puppet. Adrian asked how she knew. Evelyne said, because I watched them kill me once. Any other man would have called her insane. Adrian only said, and what do you want from me? Marry me when the time comes, Evelyne said. Protect me in public. Lend me your name. In return, I will give you the throne. For the first time, Adrian smiled. Not warmly, not gently, like a wolf recognizing another wolf. Careful, Lady Evelyne, he said. If you make me emperor, I will not let you stand beside me as a decoration. Good, she replied. I would hate to be bored. The contract was sealed without witnesses. No kiss, no romance. Just 2 people betrayed by the same empire agreeing to burn it clean. Then Seraphina entered the capital. Exactly as before, she played innocent. She dropped her books in the palace corridor. Cedric helped her gather them. She blushed, he smiled. The maid sighed. The rumor machine woke up, but Evelyne did not stop it. She encouraged it. When Seraphina accidentally attended the same garden party as Cedric, Evelyne sent the best musicians. When Cedric lied about where he had been, Evelyne pretended to believe him. When Seraphina cried because nobles insulted her birth, Evelyne publicly defended her. Everyone thought Evelyne was too stupid to notice the affair, but nobody knew every meeting was being recorded by servants Adrian had placed inside the palace. The more shameless Cedric became, the more evidence Evelyne collected. Letters, witnesses, illegal payments, secret meetings with Duke Marcel's agents. and then came the engagement anniversary ball. The same event where, in the old timeline, Seraphina had first humiliated Evelyne publicly. Cedric arrived late, with Seraphina on his arm. The room went silent. It was an insult so obvious even the musicians missed a note. Cedric expected Evelyne to explode. Seraphina expected tears. The nobles expected a show. Instead, Evelyne lifted her glass. "How lovely," she said. "His Highness has brought a guest." That calm response ruined everything, because villains need their victim to look unstable. If the victim smiles, the story becomes harder to sell. Seraphina tried anyway. She stumbled near Evelyne and spilled red wine across her own dress. Then she whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Please, my lady, I know you hate me, but you do not have to hurt me." In the old life, Evelyne had panicked. This time she snapped her fingers. A maid stepped forward with a clean towel. Another opened a small velvet case. Inside was a bracelet. Seraphina's bracelet. The one she had supposedly lost the night before. Evelyne held it up. "I found this near the prince's private greenhouse," she said sweetly. "You should be more careful. People might misunderstand." Cedric went pale. Seraphina stopped breathing. The nobles leaned forward like sharks smelling blood. Evelyne did not accuse them. Not yet. She simply smiled and handed the bracelet back. One tiny cut, one controlled drop of blood in the water. After that night, Cedric became reckless. He hated being made to look foolish, so he did what foolish men always do. He tried to prove he was powerful by making a bigger mistake. He announced that Seraphina would be appointed as a royal companion, a position that gave her access to palace documents. Exactly what Duke Marcel wanted, exactly what Evelyne needed. Within 2 weeks, Seraphina stole a military supply ledger from the prince's study. Adrian's spies copied it before she passed it on. The ledger proved Duke Marcel was moving weapons to the border, but Evelyne still waited. Adrian asked why. "We can destroy them now," he said. "No," Evelyne replied. "Right now, they can deny it. I do not want denial. I want confession." So she gave them bait. A fake letter, a fake shipment, a fake plan suggesting that the Northern Army would be vulnerable during the Emperor's birthday ball. Duke Marcel swallowed it whole. Seraphina delivered it. Cedric signed the authorization without reading. And Evelyne finally had everything. Then came the Emperor's birthday, the grandest ball of the year. Every noble house attended. Foreign envoys watched from velvet balconies. The Emperor sat above the hall like an aging lion, tired but not blind. Evelyne entered in black, not mourning black, war black. The court whispered that she looked like a villainess. They were right, but this time she was the villainess they should have feared. Halfway through the ball, Seraphina made her final move. A servant screamed. A poisoned glass was found near the Emperor's table, and just like the old timeline, all eyes turned to Evelyne. Cedric stepped forward with perfect outrage. "Lady Evelyne," he declared, "for the safety of the Empire, you must be searched." Seraphina trembled beside him. Duke Marcel watched from the corner, already celebrating. They believed history was repeating, but history was not repeating. Evelyne was. She raised both hands. "Search me." The guards found a vial in her sleeve. The room exploded. Cedric looked triumphant. Seraphina began to cry, and Evelyne looked directly at the Emperor. "Your Majesty," she said, "before I am condemned, may I ask one question?" The Emperor lifted his hand. The room fell silent. Evelyne turned to Seraphina. "If that poison is mine, how did you know where to tell them to search?" Seraphina froze. 1 second. 2 seconds. Too long. Then Adrian entered the hall. Not through the side doors, through the imperial entrance, with the northern knights behind him and the stolen ledger in his hand. Cedric shouted that this was treason. Adrian ignored him. He knelt before the Emperor and presented the documents. Illegal weapons shipments, temple money laundering, letters between Seraphina and Duke Marcel, and Cedric's own signature authorizing troop movement against the north. Everyone thought the poison vial would condemn Evelyne, but nobody knew the vial contained harmless sleeping herbs planted by Evelyne herself. The real poison was found in Seraphina's ring, a ring Cedric had given her, a ring Duke Marcel's jeweler had modified. Seraphina screamed that Evelyne framed her. Evelyne tilted her head. "Of course I did," she said softly. "I framed you with your own crimes." That line broke the room. The nobles who had mocked Evelyne now refused to meet her eyes. Her father stepped forward, suddenly full of concern. "My daughter," he said, "you should have told us." Evelyne looked at him like he was a stranger. "I did," she replied. "In another life. You chose yourself." Her brother demanded she stop this madness. Her stepmother begged her not to ruin the family. Evelyne smiled. You ruined the family when you sold me for convenience. I am only making the receipt public. Then the Emperor stood, old, furious, awake. He stripped Cedric of his title in front of the entire court. He ordered Duke Marcel arrested. He had Seraphina dragged away while she screamed that she was supposed to be Empress. And then he turned to Adrian. The forgotten imperial clause was read aloud. A prince manipulated by traitors could be removed. A loyal duke with imperial blood could be named successor. But Adrian did not step forward alone. He held out his hand to Evelyne. This was the moment the court finally understood. She had not been trying to survive the empire. She had been choosing its next ruler. Adrian said, "The empire needs an empress who can see betrayal before it wears a crown." Evelyne took his hand, and every person who had called her villainess bowed their head. Not because they loved her, because they feared her. And for Evelyne, that was enough. Weeks later, Cedric was sent to a remote estate with no title, no army, and no one left to flatter him. Seraphina's angel act vanished the moment the prison door closed. Duke Marcel lost his lands, his wealth, and his name. House Ashford begged Evelyne for mercy. She gave them exactly what they had given her. Nothing. On the day of the coronation, Evelyne walked through the palace in a silver gown embroidered with black roses. The same nobles who once whispered behind fans now praised her wisdom. The same ministers who once ignored her now waited for her permission to speak. Everyone thought becoming empress was her revenge, but they were wrong. The crown was not the revenge. The revenge was making them watch her wear it. Adrian met her at the throne. He leaned close and whispered, "Do you regret it?" Evelyne looked across the hall, at the empty place where Cedric should have stood, at the trembling nobles who had bet against her, at the empire that once burned her alive and now bowed at her feet. Then she smiled. Not even once. Because in her first life, Evelyne begged for justice. In her second life, she became justice. And if the empire wanted to call her a villainess, then she would be the most unforgettable villainess they had ever crowned.